So order comms. So I use order comms through my electronic patient record, which is Cerner Millennium in Oxford. Order comms is known to reduce the burden of laboratory admin because putting what tests are needed directly into the LIMS systems. I'm sure most people who work in labs have got something working for blood sciences at least. It's blood sciences has always been a priority for order comms, mainly because of the workload, particularly all those chemistry tests, and also primary care do huge amounts of blood science work. So there's always been a bit of a push to sort order comes out for blood sciences. I found when I looked into it that actually the use in transfusion has been, let's say, somewhat limited. Some trusts have used it for ordering group and safe samples only, but I couldn't find when I looked for it for anybody using it for requests for components and products. And I was like, if I'm going to do order comms, I want to do it for everything because AMI is my motto. So I thought it was a bit funny to just do it for group and saves. And of course, we will come to the controversial issue of do you need a request form or not? I think you can probably guess what my answer is. So this is what Oxford hospitals look like. So this one's the John Radcliffe, which is the main hospital site, and in Headington, this is at the Churchill, which is where our haematology, our transplant surgery, and our renal unit are, which is about 2 miles from the John Radcliffe. This is the orthopaedic centre, which is directly opposite the Churchill site, and it's only an orthopaedic centre. They use quite a bit of blood because they do it's a national referral centre, so they do use quite a lot of red cells, and they're important to us. And then we also have a district general, which is in Banbury, which is about 30 to 35 miles north of us, which is called the Horton site. So it wasn't as simple as doing it on one site. So the history about how we came to use order comms. So in 2011, we got Cerner Millennium as our electronic patient record. It was piloted at the NOC to see how people got on with it. People liked it, and in 2012, they started the rollout to all sites across the trust, and they asked us if we would develop an order comms for group and safe. And me being me, and the fact that I had Mike Murphy as my consultant, at that point we went, yeah, but we also want to develop order comms for component ordering, because if we're going to use it for group and saves, we want to do it for everything because that gives us the best advantage. In 2013, so it took quite a while, we began a pilot of order comms on the haematology ward. And the reason there was quite a bit of gap was development time. Trying to get stuff out of my LIMS system was into my LIMS system was somewhat interesting, and but we did eventually get it sorted out, and we began a rollout. So it became rolled out across the trust with the patients management system, the EPMA. So that we were very lucky with that, because it meant that the pharmacy team doing the EPMA stuff did our training for us, which was really nice of them. And then we completed rollout in 2015. So this is what it basically looks like. So you log into a screen, you say that you want to order whatever you want to order. So group and save is, you can put group, you can put screen, you can put a variety of things in there. They all point to the same thing. And then if you want to put red cells, if you want to order red cells, what we've done is we've linked our components and our products through to the prescription. So they have to complete a prescription screen too. So you can't prescribe, say, red cells without ordering it, and you can't order red cells without prescribing it, except if you go into theatre. We do allow them to do that. And what you do is you say you want to order red cells, and it takes you through a list of questions. So this box here is what the power plans are called. So we have a number. We have a specific one for irradiated blood, special requirements, so irradiated blood products. We have a specific one for surgery, and we have a standard one, which is red cells, which the majority of people do. What you do then is it takes you through an order entry format where you have to put in a whole variety of things. So when do you want it? Where do you want it? What transfusion group? If I do that, So what transfusion group and clinical details has your patient got? So by transfusion group, what does that, hang on, I'm gonna, no, it didn't. So by transfusion group, we put in a load of categories on why you would need a transfusion. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to say, right, okay, so we want to say cardiac surgery, and then that will then open a drop down box and you can pick cabbage, AVR, MVR, etc., etc. Cerner's not that clever, so we ended up having to put cardiac and then a list. So we've got a list of about 200. They're in the back of the BSH IT guidelines, if anybody's interested in them. And the person doing it, so for red cells, unless it's a nurse with prescription rights, it's got to be a doctor. So they select what category of patient they are. We have changed these over the years, so we put COVID in when COVID happened, and in fact we've just taken COVID out because we just never use COVID. And we do find that people do seem to, we do a bit of monitoring now and then. We do some fairly basic checks to check that the one at the top was COVID, just to check that not everybody had COVID, which they don't. That didn't work in 2020, but it does work now. And then we get them to put some clinical information on, and then what they do is do that. So you can see what sort of categories we come up with, and there are lots and lots of them, but they are actually quite user friendly. So if you want obstetrics, you just put an O. Yeah, you'll get obstetrics. You might get orthopedics. You might have to do OR if you want orthopedics, but it does work very well for the doctors. And then what they have to do is they have to then tell us why they want to have blood. So we've actually recently dropped the one about hematology patients, so we've actually now got them down to 70. So what you do, you select the reason you want to have a transfusion. So active bleeding at the top doesn't run any algorithm checks. If you select one of the others, it does. So say you select that the HB 70, it then shows you what the last HB was and checks it. And if the HB isn't under 70, you then get an alert. And it's up to them what they then do with the alert. They can always, we don't actively block them from making an order, even if they get an alert, but we do monitor the alerts because obviously they're with the patient, we're not. There may be a reason that actually they've not explained very well why they want blood, but what we do is we have an SPR a couple of times a week, go through the alerts and actually look why they did it. But if we flag with them, oh, actually you said your HB's under 70 and it's 80 or something like that, they can say, oh, okay, I won't bother having that now, and they can just cancel it, or they can just move on with it. So it's as user friendly as it can be. It's active decision support. And the other thing we did do is, you notice here, we did put a default of 1 for the number of red cells. And then when they go down and sign it, if they don't get an alert, it comes straight through to the laboratory. There we go. Do we do it for all components and products? The answer is yes. We wanted to make it the standard way of ordering, and the only way to do this was to do all components and products. I think IT thought we'd gone slightly loopy, but there you go. We don't think we did. We think it was the right decision. So there is a word of caution here when talking about order comms. You do need to agree a process for urgent requests. We did have a nurse working in the transfusion team who very much felt that I should have all my major hemorrhage activations put on EPR. And I said no. And I stood very firm at no, because I felt that, it may take us 20 minutes, half an hour to notice that there'd been a major hemorrhage activation on EPR, unless it actually screamed at us, and it wasn't able to do that. So you do need to work out something of what you're going to do with your urgent requests. So so for us, MHP is still activated by phone. I've no real desire to change it. I like the activation by phone. You're talking to the person who's in need of the blood. You know where it's come from. And they know that the request's been dealt with. So we do allow some. So the other urgent requests, we tell them if they put them on order comms and then give us a ring, we'll prioritise them, and that works really well. And I think that for me, that worked well for what I wanted. So what did we hope to see? We wanted to see a reduction in our workload, particularly for requesting. We wanted to see a reduction in errors made at requesting. We wanted better information on the patient, better patient demographics, so there was like a lot less typos, because if it came over EPR it should be correct because that's linked to the spine. And we wanted better clinical information. I also had a big aim that I wanted to reduce the number of phone calls in the laboratory. You know, our phone calls used to be quite hideous at times. We used to have two support workers answer the phone almost perpetually. And I wanted to look at streamlining the lab workflow to try and make it a paperless laboratory. As I said, it's not totally paperless yet. It's getting there. It's got a little way to go. So we made the decision, or I made the decision, that I didn't want a request card. I didn't want a request card for a group and save, and I didn't want a request card for a blood product or a component issue. And I know this is a bit controversial, and but my seniors also felt that they wanted request cards at the time, particularly one of them who has since retired. But my comment, and this is what we did, we said, right, okay, think of what we use that request card for. So we sat down and we wrote everything about how we used a request card. So most labs use a request card for something once you've actually requested it, before you scan it or whatever you do with it at the end. We used it for checking the sample against, we used it for making a worksheet, for knowing what we had outstanding, for writing things like where, if we'd ordered blood because it was something that needed something specific. So we went through it and we went, right, okay, so if we haven't got a request card, what are we going to do? So we looked at all our processes where we used our request cards, and we redesigned them to work in an electronic or in another way. And get your laboratory senior staff to do this is my tip, because they were the ones who developed it, and they were the ones who then owned it. So this is what we did. We redesigned. So we checked the sample against the request card. Well, actually, all we do now is we check the sample against the electronic request. We used to use the request cards to make a worksheet. I don't know why we use the request cards to work on a worksheet, because you just put you have the samples you need to put on the worksheet, put them on a worksheet. We used to check the request cards for when red cells were needed and when. Well, actually, that's all in the LIMS anyway, because it's coming over electronically. And knowing when specialist products were ordered was it was quite important. And actually we now have a whiteboard in the lab which we write the ordered units on with the patient name, and that works just as well. In some ways it's better, and it makes the lab a lot less cluttered. Has it been a success? I think it's been a success. Yes, all our requests, apart from those urgent ones, are now made by order comms, and have been for a long time. Has it been good? Requesting both group and saves and products is far quicker. I previously told you I had 2 support workers answering the phone, making booking in and taking orders. Actually, it's now 1, and actually she isn't fully occupied because actually it just works much easier. We are getting a lot less typos in the orders that appear electronically. We are getting better information, and it's much easier to do any audit work if you need to. Because we have labs at different sites, I worked on different issue sets at the different sites, depending on the location of the patient. That works really well. I would say try that if that works for you. We are seeing our outstanding work much quicker. It's easier. It's great. We are getting a lot less phone calls, which is fantastic. Are we getting better information? Now, this is obviously quite old audit data, because we've been live with this since 2015. And I did this at the point when we were getting some paper requests and some electronic requests. So you can see there that, are we getting better information? To be honest, I think it stands for itself that yes, we are. You can easily find the information. So things that we weren't getting very well, which is things like, does the patient need any special requirements? Does the a phone number in order to get a hold of somebody to ask them a question? we now get, because they can't actually complete the order if they don't fill it in. I know that sounds a little naughty, but it works really well. So what other advantages do we see? We know what's coming in before the sample arrives. So our samples come from all over the trust. So sometimes there is a delay. So anything coming in that has got an order for a cross match that needs phenotyped units, we're seeing that early. We're not waiting for the sample to arrive in the department. We can get them ordered potentially on the next routine transport. It allows us to spot. So say we've suddenly got 6 orders, all of which APOS are coming in, and they all need a lot. We can order additional units up quite quickly. We can spot they're coming. It does flag us to those HLA match platelets been requested quite early, i.e. before the medical team, clinical team phone us. Sometimes they don't phone us at all, so we'd have never have known. But we are actually enabling them to meet their requirements quite quick. We aren't having to scan a lot of request cards. We used to scan request cards, and I hated scanning request cards. And we are getting a lot less confidential waste, so which is great. So have we problems any counters? Yeah, it's not been totally smooth. Yeah, so this is you'll see I'm on Telepath for those of you who didn't know. So this is the outstanding orders screen that's coming through. It's meant to refresh every 5 minutes. It doesn't always refresh, so you do have to go into it. And yeah, that could be better. In fact, that's my one real thing. And what the other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to, if I wanted to work from one of these orders on this screen here, is just click on it here and then it take me through, whereas at the moment we have to cut and paste to actually move it forward, which, yeah, again, that's clunky, but I'm like a lot of people working on a new LIMS system, so I'm hoping that'll change when I move to a new LIMS supplier. So other problems, the other problems are around clinical staff, really. Not putting the correct date and time that products are required in. That's particularly important for platelets. I've had a number of times when people have wanted platelets for the following day. They've ordered them for that day. We've issued them for that day, used platelets expiring at midnight, and then they've moaned when they've expired the following morning. Well, we acted on the information that we've acted on the information that we've been given. So they've told us one thing and we've acted on it. So we had one of the hematology registrars do that, and it has got a bit better in that team since. I think she's been doing a bit of publicity on it. So we've also had the clinical staff, because we fill in a prescription. So order 1 unit, because it defaults at 1, and then change the prescription but not change the order to another number, and that's then occasionally causes a problem where the ward think that we've not issued the number of units that were requested, but in our eyes, from the order, we did order it. So we've done a bit of publicity to try and improve that, but they're minor things. So getting clinical engagement, order comps was rolled out to the trust. As I said, it was with EPMA. We encourage people, when they called wanting to order blood initially, we encouraged them to use the system. But if they were really persevering, we actually used to accept it paper-based. This is back in probably 2016. But we are now very strict. What I did was we set a date. I can't even remember what the date was. I know it was in November. And we actually said, right, from this day, if you don't actually put your order on EPR, you're not getting it unless you can prove to me that the patient's bleeding. I had one clinical area, gynae, for those of you who want a good laugh, where they refused to use order comps for anything. They wouldn't put their group and saves on. They wouldn't put their orders on. And we warned them, and one of the TPs spent considerable time talking through with them and considerable effort to get them to use it. And they did not believe that for 1 minute on the date we'd given them, which was a good 2 months notice we gave them, that we wouldn't actually accept their orders. So on the morning that came round and I got the first order without an order on, I rejected it personally and rang them up and told them I was rejecting it personally. And they said, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. And you've got to accept it. And I said, no, I don't. I've been telling you for 2 months that on this day, we won't reject it. We will reject it. And And I said, why didn't you believe me? Oh, well, we didn't believe you would do it. And I said, well, I will do it. And we've got backup from the trust board to do it. So if you want to have a problem, go talk to them. And in fact, their then answer was, oh, what can I do now? What can I do now? And I said, we can just put an order in EPR and I'll still do it. And I did. And they've been very good ever since. So it just shows you that sometimes people, whatever you say to them, won't believe you until you actually act on it. Actually, it has helped with our compliance. So these are quite old figures now, but you see back in 2014, our haematology ordering was quite rubbish compared to their own guideline, like 40% of red cells and only 70% of platelets. And like 2 years later, it was back at almost 100%. So it does help you do that. The other thing it helps you do is it will reduce the number of blood products you use. These are old figures because I didn't want to put 2019 and 20 on because of obviously the effect of COVID. So, you know, like this all, we were doing other things too, but it all helped. And it does encourage 1 unit transfusions. So the green line is 1 unit transfusions. So you see at the beginning, we were quite low at doing 1 unit transfusions. We're now, I don't know, it's about 85%, I think, in the trust. So it definitely encourages 1 unit transfusions. And that's gone fairly static ever since. So, which is good. So in conclusion, the advantages of using an order system to order components and products are, I think they're many. I think they're variable. People will get different things out of it. The lab's advantages are the accuracy of the information that we receive on the request. It reduces a lot of staff time per request at requesting, and it allows you to see the requests as soon as they're made, not just when they arrive in the laboratory. The clinical advantages is everything's done on EPR. So, you know, to actually pick up a bit of paper and fill a paper request in when you're doing everything else in EPR feels bizarre. It helps compliance with clinical guidelines. It helps show them it's better PBM. Yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't hard work. It was hard work, but it was well worth it.